With 5 shows and 10 years worth of fans, Ben 10 has been a definite favorite of the last generation. We gave you 107 facts before, but if you didn't get your alien fill, here we are back again with even more. And I mean more. Hey guys, I'm Jacob with channel Frederator, and it's hero time because we're counting down 107 more facts about Ben 10. Let's get started. So how did the guys of Man of Action, the company behind Ben 10, meet? Well, Joe Kelly and Stephen T. Siegel met when they worked on the X-Men comic, and Siegel was already working with Joe Casey and Duncan Rouleau in LA at the time. The guys liked working together so much that when Kelly began working for DC Comics, the rest of the guys made the jump with him. The friendship then grew into the studio, now known as Man of Action. One of the benefits of making a company like Man of Action is that the founders were a collective of writers. Rouleau described the team as a plug-and-play writer's room that could just come in and do their thing when Cartoon Network needed consulting on any of the Ben 10 shows after the original. What prompted the call to action for Man of Action? Robot Chicken. Well, sort of. Co-creator of Robot Chicken, Matt Senreich, approached Man of Action in the early 2000s at San Diego Comic-Con and told them Cartoon Network was looking for superhero action shows and that they should pitch some concepts. As far as inspiration, the men of Man of Action based Ben off their childhood dream of becoming a superhero, but then they thought, why turn into one superhero when you could be 10? Ben 10 was pitched to Sam Register and Tram Wigzell at Cartoon Network. The network was looking for a superhero-like show that didn't involve already established superheroes or things like that. According to Kelly, during their meeting with Register, they fired off a pitch a minute. 20 pitches in 20 minutes, they called it, but the one that stuck with Cartoon Network was the idea of Ben 10. While Ben 10 did not end up like it was originally pitched, it evolved from the core concept that the network was interested in, a kid that could turn into different superheroes. Ben 10 was originally an idea that Man of Action was planning to use for X-Men. It was originally called Force 10. When it was pitched to Register, the idea changed and began to evolve. The team developed the idea for 2 years before it finally came on the air as Ben 10. The team of Man of Action are its own target audience on some level. What inspired them to even make shows like Generator X and Ben 10 was to make shows that they would have watched as kids. It goes without saying that Ben 10 was a big leap for Man of Action. According to Kelly, had Ben 10 not been a hit, Man of Action would have kept plugging along working on other people's shows. During Ben 10's runtime, other popular hero shows were airing on Cartoon Network like Teen Titans. What the network was trying to accomplish back then was to develop a feeling of Silver Age comics back when Marvel and DC were doing stranger stories. What Man of Action and the rest of the Ben 10 team wanted to do was to recreate the emotional impact that comic book heroes had on them when they were growing up. One of the big points going into the series was that, like every great superhero, Ben needed an arch rival or villain, so the team came up with Vilgax, the strongest and toughest alien Ben would face in the original series. For the big imposing villain, Man of Action wanted Vilgax to be as imposing and oppressive as possible. When we finally see him in full form in the episode Secrets, he's about 15 to 20 feet tall according to Man of Action. Man of Action always planned for Grandpa Max to be a plumber, you know, the secret agent kind. In fact, before the big reveal in the episode Secrets, Man of Action peppered in little hints throughout the season that Max knew more than he was letting on. While Ben might be the hero and the titular character, Man of Action wanted to really showcase the Tennysons as this family fighting team. In the first season, they introduced Lucky Girl Gwen as well as Max's plumber background to show that the other characters are just as capable as Ben. Ben 10 naturally went through some changes before becoming the iconic hero we know today. Man of Action had artist Stephen E. Gordon draw up designs for their earliest version of Ben 10, which involved superheroes instead of aliens. 2 designs are on his blog that show early versions of Forearms, here called Strong Guy and Accelerate. The Omnitrix not only went through design changes, but also name changes as well. One of the first names for the watch was the Mega What? Because the alien name would be too long for Ben to remember. Stephen E. Gordon made the first version of the Omnitrix. In an early version where Ben was a redhead, you can see that the Omnitrix resembled more of a yellow orb that locked onto his wrist rather than a watch. But the Omnitrix watch was originally going to look a lot like a regular watch. Early concept art showed the Omnitrix looking pretty ordinary with hands and a dial that most watches have and a button on the side that would activate the alien selections. According to Gordon's original concept art, Ben was going to take after the comic series Dial H for Hero in that he would transform into different heroes. Early concept art for Upgrade was completely different. Instead of the black, green, and white blob, he was something that was more akin to Mongol from DC Comics. Heat Blast originally had pants. The alien's concept art had him wearing a green Speedo and his features were more humanoid. Gray Matter's original design was a lot more gray. Based on his original concept art, he looked a lot more like a little gray men alien stereotype. Ready for some nightmare fuel? Ghost Freak's original design leaned more on the freak aspect than the ghost. The alien was an orange grinning monster with tentacles for hair. Though he only appeared in Secrets of the Omnitrix, Guy went through a lot of changes. Some of the early concepts borrowed assets from other established aliens before the bat design for Guy was chosen. Ben Wolf also went through some changes despite not being a series regular. Some of the early versions included something resembling a centaur corgi. Another of Gordon's concepts that went unused was the alien Digger. This mole-like creature was shown to be in Ben's original roster, but he never made it onto the team. Ripjaw's original design had him named Razorjaws. This version had him with webbed feet and a purple and green color scheme. Wildvine also went through some changes. In Gordon's original concepts, he was simply named Plant Guy and was a creature covered with bark. Before becoming Stinkfly, he was Dragonfly. Gordon's concepts revealed Dragonfly's original design as being more humanoid like the rest of the aliens, as opposed to an actual insect. The concept art for Ben 10 has been shown in a lot of styles, but some are just downright terrifying. Artist Eric Canetti drew up a round of concept art for different aliens from the Ben 10 Omniverse. Needless to say, whatever they used was a tad bit toned down from Canetti's version. If you want to see some Ben 10 original designs, look no further than Dave Johnson's DeviantArt. He worked as the art director for the original show and has posted a ton of his designs on the site. Some of them include model sheets for Grey Matter, Wild Mutt, Heat Blast, and the rest of the original roster. Johnson returned to make some designs for Omniverse. Showrunner Derek Wyatt asked if he could have the new aliens in the original Ben 10 style, so he drew up an early concept of the alien Feedback. One of the character designers, Dave Williams, drew up some promotional concept art that depicts Ben in a spacesuit with smaller aliens on his arms and by his feet. There are some screenshots from the unaired pilot with Gwen's original design. The screenshots are from the episode Washington, BC, and it shows Gwen with long hair instead of her signature short hair. Ghost Freak is the only one of Ben's aliens to have a different appearance in every reboot. The intro sequence was animated by the studio Renegade Animation. The lineup of aliens was illustrated by Andrew Robinson, who is another comic book writer and illustrator. The original theme song was sung by the vocalist Moxie. Moxie is a retro-style singer-songwriter, and while she hasn't done music for television since Ben 10, she is still writing new material and going on tour. A lot of the Season 1 writing credits are given to Marty Eisenberg. Man of Action commends him for his storytelling and plot. Man of Action credits Dave Johnson as the art director for a lot of the episodes. They loved his design of Vilgax's transport and spiked death balls, saying it was so like Vilgax to have these transports whose sole purpose is destruction, which is weird for a transport. You'd think that the primary purpose of a transport would be transport. One thing that sets Ben 10 apart from other heroes is his development and that he has to learn how to use his own abilities. As the series progresses, Ben learns new things about his alien powers and uses them in a way that not even the creators originally intended. Want to know how Max knew that Ben was an alien? The hint that Man of Action dropped was in the first episode of the original series, and then there were 10. When Max sees Ben as Heat Blast and tells Gwen he's not a monster, he's an alien. From the start, Man of Action wanted to write in a gag for Upgrade to infect Gwen's laptop. In the episode Secrets, they finally got to write in that joke, and we see the upgraded version of Gwen's laptop. The scene where Vilgax throws Ben into his ship in the episode Secrets had to be edited to make it less extreme. From the DVD commentary on the episode, it implies that Man of Action originally had been roughed up a little before being taken. So why is the plumber base at Mount Rushmore? Well, Sam Register, the producer of the show, suggested that the base be put in a national park or monument as opposed to an obvious building. In fact, the idea to put the secret base in a monument in the first place is an homage to the 60s comic book era. Man of Action used this to further illustrate that Ben represented a hero of the present while Max was a hero of the past. In the episode Secrets, there is a vision of what Vilgax would do with the Omnitrix, and it shows a war being waged with soldiers made of Ben's aliens. In the original episode, Man of Action had drawn more stills depicting battles and other action shots, but had to cut them because they were too long. The scene in Secrets where Ben is on Vilgax's ship presented an interesting challenge for the crew because they needed a device that would still restrain Ben through all of his transformations. They wanted to avoid a standard operating table and instead went with a giant all-encompassing machine that fit around Ben's arm, and yet it still wasn't strong enough to contain forearms. One of the most interesting concepts Man of Action had was the transformation of the Rust Bucket. They always intended for the Rust Bucket to transform, and the crew went through different modes that the RV could go into. The scene where Ben is forced to transform through all of his aliens in Secrets was done by Lotto Animation Studios. The studio did frequent work throughout Season 1. In that same episode, Man of Action broke one of their own rules. Usually, Ben can only be one alien at a time before recharging. In Secrets, the watch malfunctions and he's able to cycle through all 10 aliens at random. Man of Action thought it would be cooler for their Season 1 finale to feature all of the aliens, so they went with it. The question that the writers would ask themselves when writing Ben 10 was, how does this relate to a kid? They never wanted to write down to kids, but instead make the story relevant to what kids think and care about. What makes Ben 10 unique from other heroes is that that he's a kid, unlike many other superheroes who are either adults or teenagers. Or DC's Captain Marvel, but that's a whole other can of worms. Something that has changed for Man of Action on the newer shows is the entertainment technology. The original series, according to Siegel, had a very linear and narrative-driven structure that built up over time. Now, people are getting stuff from so many different platforms that the show had to follow suit and create a giant world from which they could carve out pieces and have the audience watch that way. Tara Strong has pretty much always been the voice of Ben 10, that's no surprise there. But what is surprising is that for the latest reboot, Man of Action thought of replacing her. They had Strong re-audition thinking that this time around maybe Ben should be played by a kid. Of course, they changed their minds and stuck with Strong. Though Tara Strong has played boy characters before, we all know her as Timmy Turner from Fairly OddParents, she found Ben different from her other male characters because he's very cocky and can be condescending at times. He's also different in the fact that Ben's voice is deeper than her other male voices like Timmy Turner. When it comes to writing, Man of Action would pick both standalone plots and large overarching story plots in the past. For the new reboot, however, they're not doing tight episodic storytelling. This style change was made to adapt to how the majority of stories are told nowadays. Siegel described it like mapping out a big story and then throwing it all up in the air like a bunch of jigsaw puzzle pieces and trying to see if they'll all land right. While Ben has fluxed in age, Man of Action likes him best when he's a kid. Kelly commented saying that at 10 years old, Ben is so impetuous and reckless that there's a lot for him to learn and screw up. This explains why the reboot reverts Ben's age back to 10. They also chose to return to 10-year-old Ben in the reboot because they wanted to reach a new generation of kids. In addition, they felt that there were a lot of stories that they could have told with the 10-year-old Ben that they might have missed with the original series. So, just to keep up with the timeline, in the original show, Ben was 10 years old. In Alien Force, Ben was 15. In Ultimate Alien and Omniverse, he was 16, and in the 2016 reboot, he returns to age 10. So by now, you might be asking yourself why Ben 10 gets rebooted so often. Well, Cartoon Network noticed that kids get bored of things pretty easily, so they came up with a decision to reboot and change Ben every so often rather than waiting for kids to get bored with the concept. Man of Action was not happy about all of the changes at first. When the original series ended and went to Alien Force, the team was shocked to see such a harsh time skip from 10 to 15 years old. Now it's part of the DNA of the show, so the team has come around to the idea and even went full circle with the newest reboot. The world of Ben 10 has expanded somewhat with each new version. Ben 10 started out as just a kid with a watch in the original, then became a more notable hero by the time Alien Force and Ultimate Alien came around. And then Ben reached the height of his prestige in Omniverse when he was recognized in the plumber ranks. Now, he's back to just being a kid with a watch. One of the most notable things fans of the franchise say is, why is the art so different in all of these shows? According to Man of Action, this is linked with why Ben is rebooted so often. Looking back, the jump from the original to Alien Force was a big step for the team, and they thought that changing the art style would be in sync with the change of the times and how art evolves. Man of Action has been hands-on and off throughout the Ben 10 franchise. For Omniverse, they were more consultants for the show since the team was producing Ultimate Spider-Man at the time. While the Ben 10 reboot is bringing back a lot of the elements like voice actors and story, the theme is written by Kevin Manthe. He was a composer for other Man of Action shows like Generator Rex and Ultimate Spider-Man. The original show's episodes were 22 minutes long for a standard 30-minute TV length. For the reboot, the team decided to cut it down to 2 11-minute episodes. They wanted to do this in order to cover more ground as far as the Ben 10 world is concerned. Though many voices are coming back from the original series for the new reboot, some voices from other Ben 10 reboots will be taking over roles people had in the original. One big name is John DiMaggio, who is voicing Four-Arms. In the original, Four-Arms was voiced by Richard McGonigal. The Ben 10 universe has become a bit more sci-fi over the course of the reboots and less mystical. Joe Kelly sees positives and negatives with each of these revamped versions, and though he personally wished they kept Gwen's magic, he believes that at the end of the day, things need to be kept simple so the Ben 10 world works. Nolan Obino is the series art director and lead background designer for seasons 3 to 4. He's also done backgrounds for DC shows like Young Justice and Justice League The Flashpoint Paradox. You can see his sketches and line art from Ben 10 on his website. Ben 10 has had many theme songs over its many reboots. While Andy Sturmer did the theme song for the original and for Alien Force, Perry Grip of the band Nerf Herder wrote the theme for Ben 10 Omniverse. Ben is not the only Tennyson to have the watch. In the episode Gwen 10, the events of the first episode are altered so Gwen gets the watch instead of Ben. Throughout the course of the episode, Gwen turns into Heat Blast, Four-Arms, Upgrade, and Accelerate. Grandpa Max even has a go at the watch. Some of the repurposed aliens that were featured as villains have names. The red Upchuck concept was named Gullet, and the purple Upchuck concept was named Sploot. At one point, the creators didn't even realize that the series had reached such worldwide acclaim. Steven Seagal remembered taking a trip to Estonia and being surprised to see Ben 10 toys in the duty-free shop on the ferry there. Joe Kelly's Ben 10 is a hit moment was less exotic. He noticed that a can of Chef Boyardee SpaghettiOs featured Ben 10, and he thought to himself, wow, he must be a hit. There's actually a Ben 10 roller coaster in the UK. Seagal really took that as a sign find that Ben 10 was a huge hit. On his blog, Kelly described one Halloween in 2006 when a kid named Jake crossed his path when he was taking his family trick-or-treating. Instead of being one of the go-to costumes boys usually pick for Halloween, Jake was Ghost Freak from Ben 10. It warmed Kelly's heart and reminded him that it was kids like Jake that made the show worth it. You might wonder why they're rebooting the original rather than continuing the story with the 2016 version. Man of Action explained that the show has always rebooted every 2 or 3 years and they wanted to continue the cycle. Siegel believes that for Ben 10 to improve, it needs to evolve. He said that throughout all of these reboots, it's still the same old Ben, the kid with the watch that he doesn't fully know how to use going on adventures. Man of Action feel they've kept that spirit of the character alive throughout all of his iterations. Fans aren't the only ones who point out flaws. Jack Siegel, Steven Siegel's father, called him during the original series run when Ben was able to transform into 11 aliens and said, "Your character just turned into 11! He's Ben 10!" He's got a point. Kelly is humbled by Ben 10's success. The fact that he had a hand in creating a show that airs in 170 plus countries is exciting to him beyond belief. He described his reaction to the success as the "this is actually happening" moment. How many people would like to see a Gwen 10 spinoff? According to Kelly, something like that has been developed or at the very least proposed in Japan. While he would love to see it come to light, Man of Action has no plans yet to make a spinoff. With all these reboots, there have been some people that have drawn parallels to the Doctor Who franchise since both shows have a main character that regularly reinvents themselves. Rouleau agrees that Ben and the Doctor share some similarities in that sense. If you haven't noticed, things will often repeat in reboots. In the Omniverse episode, And Then There Was Ben, the reboot does a shot-for-shot recreation of how Ben found the Omnitrix, just like in the original. One of the things that Ben 10 viewers can walk away with are the clear morals. Wigzel and the Man of Action team believe that Ben 10's strength comes from empowering young boys to stand up for what is right and to believe in themselves. They also believe that the violence in the show is from a sense of justice and not merely violence for violence's sake. Where there is Ben 10, there are toys. The New York Toy Fair showed a new line of Ben 10 figures and toys in early 2017, showcasing a lot of the classic aliens from the original show that returned in the reboot. For the original series launch, Bandai America was given the license to put out the first line of Ben 10 toys. The lineup included 4-inch alien collectibles, 6-inch collectibles, transforming figures, alien space vehicles, and more. Ben 10 was also featured in some lesser-known video game systems. The Ben 10 Hyperscan was released in October of 2006. It was a short-lived game system by Mattel that was marketed towards younger children who were not quite ready for a full-fledged console. Some of Ben 10's early traditional video games saw just as much success as the show they were based on. The first game, Ben 10 Protector of Earth, sold 2.5 million copies worldwide. In addition to the numerous video games, Bandai made a now discontinued online game called DNA Fusion where you could mix and match different aliens. Some of the unused alien fusions are still available online. They use the alien gray matter and come out with Gray Vine, Gray Mummy, Gray Victor, Gray Chuck, and Cannon Matter. For one of the Ben 10 live-action movies, Race Against Time, director Alex Winters promoted it by saying he wanted the film to feel like X-Men with a more cinematic action approach. When asked about the inclusion of live-action and CGI for Race Against Time, Winters commented that he was planning to have no Jar Jars, a jab at the infamous character from the Star Wars prequels. Understandably, the movie Race Against Time couldn't feature all of the Ben 10 aliens, so the only aliens that appear in the movie are Diamond Head, Heat Blast, Wild Mutt, and Gray Matter. After its initial release, the movie Secret of the Omnitrix was put on the Season 4 DVD along with 3 other versions of the film, including one with deleted scenes and another with bonus trivia. The TV movie was split up into 3 parts and was initially meant to be the finale of the first Ben 10 series. The CGI film Ben 10 Destroy All Aliens had a different working title. The original title was Ben 10 Alien Dimensions, as shown in an ANMTV article about a year before the film's release. Fans have shown their love for the show by making notable parodies. One of the most famous parodies is a Spanish version of the intro called Gil 10, which features animator Gildario 9's original transformations, one of which is Paris Hilton. Another really popular Ben 10 fanimation is Mateo is Ben 10. The 20-second short features a kid with an Omnitrix toy transforming into a CGI Accelerate. The short was made by Rafael Fernandez Stoll, a visual effects artist who has worked on films like The Nut Job and Romeo and Juliet. If you ever wondered why Alien X looks frozen sometimes, it's because his multiple personalities are trying to decide what course of action to take. See, he can't make any movements without at least 2 of his 3 personalities agreeing. I know how that feels. Another Alien X tidbit, one of the many things that makes him different from Ben's other forms is that Alien X has 5 fingers. What? That's outside the cartoon tradition box! And if you want to know why that's so weird, check out our Why Do Cartoons Have 4 Fingers video when you're done here. There was a running gag in Ben 10 Omniverse where Ben would keep trying to transform into Humongosaur, but every time he tried, he would end up transforming into a different alien instead. It's parody time. In the crossover episode, Ben 10 Generator Rex Heroes United, ended, Rex creates his own theme song that resembles the Ben 10 theme song. Ben 10's success really opened the doors for Man of Action in more ways than one. Due to Ben 10's recognition, the studio has been able to work with companies around the world and, amazingly enough, retain a lot of creative control over the finished product. In 2008, Cartoon Network hosted what was called Ben 10 Week, a week celebrating the show before the release of Alien Force. One day that week even teased a lost episode. It later turned out to be the season finale episode. The Ben 10 Week also aired a show called I-10, the Ben 10 user-generated experience. In it, fans got to say what they liked about the show. It also included behind-the-scenes info and sneak peeks. Thanks for watching 107 more facts about Ben 10. Who's your favorite alien? Which episode do you think is the best? Comment below and let us know. We have new videos dropping every day, so make sure to subscribe for all the latest content. And don't forget to click the little bell icon to become part of our notification squad. We like it when you stop by, cause remember, Frederator loves you.